All right, welcome back, photographers. You are here because you must need a little bit more help in reviewing some of the edits that you can use for your still life photography, or you just run out of ideas and you need a little bit more inspiration. So that's what this video is for. It's not a lesson, so you don't have to follow along, but you can if you want to. So I've downloaded a still life image from the internet. It's not a bad image, but it could still use some inspirational editing, so to speak. So the first thing I want to do is I want to review with you this drawer of tools here. This tool is a really important tool because what it does is it allows you to heighten and change things in specific areas. So as a reminder, your dodge tool, what that does is it lightens. Now, if I want to increase my highlights, I've got it set on highlight here, so I can kind of just brush over and bring up those highlights. I can also, if I decide I have a shadow that's a little too dark in midtones, maybe I want more contrast, I'm going to lighten my midtones as well. And you can increase or decrease up here. So that's your dodge tool. You can even, if you have shadows that need to get lightened, you can do that as well. Conversely, you have the burn tool. Conversely is a fancy word that means the opposite. So the opposite of the dodge tool is the burn tool. So that's going to darken just like it sounds. So same way, if I have it set on shadows, it's going to darken my shadows. I can decide how much I want it to darken. So I can really push that contrast. I can even come in this area, maybe make that however you want to, okay? The last one is your sponge tool. Your sponge tool, you can use one of two ways. You can saturate or desaturate. So let's say I'm going to set it, first of all, on saturate, and I'm going to make this pair brighter. I'm going to up that a little bit more. So I'm really going to saturate that. But I can also use it the opposite way. I can desaturate. So I can remove some of the color from the other ones. So now that one stands out a little bit more. All right. I also want to remind you, you have lots of image adjustment commands. You can play around with any of these. Play around with them. Obviously, you know levels and you know your color balance, but also play around with that color lookup and the black and white and the photo filter, especially color lookup. If you're trying to do something cool, I mean, it has some awesome different options here. Okay. All right, but what I'm talking to you today about is layer mode. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to open up our layers panel. So go up to Window, Layers. If it's not open, if it doesn't have a check mark, you're going to click on that. So think of layers just like it sounds. Okay, clear layers of pixels. You can add to those. You can also copy, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to make a copy. The way you do that is you click and you drag down to that plus button. That's your new layer button. All right, right now it doesn't look like I did anything because it's just stacked run on top of each other. But this is where I can be a little bit creative with some of those adjustment commands. So let's say I wanted to, let's invert it. Let's, for whatever reason. But I want to blend it a little bit. Maybe that's too much. I can take my opacity down and let it start to blend with what's beneath it. All right, I'm going to go back in my histories. I'm going to choose a different one so you see it a little bit better. Although I did like that invert. That was kind of cool. Let's do this. Let's just straight up do black and white. Why not? So this is where I can start to let some of that underneath show through. So it's literally blending these two together. All right. You can also so I've got my copies here. I love these color lookups, and you can even see if some of these will work in here. My computer at home, it lets me, I don't know why it doesn't here, but anyways, the top ones are your best ones anyways. But I can do something really crazy, like that horror blue. That is, oh, dang it. That was really rad. I want to try that again. Horror blue. So I can say I really like this, and I do. To me, this already looks a lot better, but I can still merge it down. I can take my opacity down so it's maybe not as intense, because some of those photo filters get really intense. The other option is, this is the new part, guys. you can change what's called your layer mode. So right now, by default, our layer mode is set to normal. You'll see that right here. If I drop down that arrow, there's all these different options. And if I'm just letting my mouse hover, what it's doing is it's taking my top layer and it's blending it in some way with that bottom layer. So darken, multiply, they all do different things. And it's one more way to give your image a little bit of oomph to it. So I'm going to show you. So let's say I kind of like that, but that's a little intense. I can change it to the vivid light. I can still take my opacity down and soften that effect. So the opacity always, that's why I like this duplicate layer. It lets you soften that. All right. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to show you. Why not? I'm going to show you. Let's do in the blur gallery. Nope, I lied. Let's go into the render, and I want to show you the lens flare just because it's fun. Just be careful, don't overuse it. So your lens flare adds what it sounds like. It adds that. I just lost it. It adds that artificial distortion in the light. So it's going to open up this dialog box. You can move the spotlight around. You can change the different type. So let's say I kind of like that one and click OK. You can add a lens flare. They're kind of hokey. I sometimes say they're kind of like glitter in the Photoshop world. Like they're nice, but they can get overused really, really quickly. All right. So that's pretty much it. That's your layer modes. So practice with those. You can even do it without a basic. You can just make a copy. Let me show you that one time before I let you loose. So even without making any photo, I can still change that, and it's still going to mix the two together. So it's going to take the two that are exactly the same. These two are exactly the same. But if I'm on that top layer, I can still use some of these layer modes to give an interesting visual effect. Don't ask me why they're all called what they're called, and they all kind of act differently depending on what image you have there, but they're always an option to play around with. Okay? Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped give you some more ideas. Go play, experiment, have some fun.